This is Between Hooksets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the fishing crew.
What is going on, dude?
I know I was a little bit nervous with all the stuff I've got. Everything's tight. And you watch that hook set, I'm going to rip the mic stand right off the table. And luckily I was able to get around and do the deal. So can't start the show without the hook set. So I'm kind of excited.
It's legend. It's a staple for you.
Well, the crazy thing is when I run into people, and it's not like I'm running into a million people, but a few people here and there are like, I watched the show just to watch you do that stupid hook set. I never understood why you did it until I paid attention to the show and heard the guy say, set the hook, which is me, by the way. So, it's a thing. Why, Ashley, how do you do?
Yeah, so, I mean, we have a lot of people to catch up with. We played a couple phone tags to get some people on. Stuff just couldn't work out for tonight, but you pulled off a great guest.
Honestly, I think we pulled off one of the coolest surprise guests. He's been on the JMO podcast. He's got his own podcast. He's got his own show, Uncle Lou, How Do You Do? He is pretty much everywhere. All over YouTube. He's become one of my go-to guys, one of my go-to walleye teacher guys. I just did an episode because of Brett and TJ Erickson. I'm like, you know what? I need to do my top 5 walleye teachers. And TJ and Brett are on the list. The one thing that I said in the episode when it comes out next week is it's really hard to do 5 down to number 1, and rank them. Because they're all on an equal playing field. They're all really freaking good and awesome. They've got great graphics. They do everything just wonderfully. And Brett's one of them. There's Brett McComas. You got Tom Boley. And here's the one that people just don't get and understand because I don't think they've been paying attention as long as maybe I have. I don't know. But Seth Burrill. Burrill. Look him up. And as a matter of fact, the link to Angler's Experience is on my YouTube page. You go watch his stuff, and he's out on the Columbia River teaching us how to catch great big walleye out there. And that's almost 20 years ago. So a big deal. So anyway, without further ado, because I hate it when our guest sits in the green room and has to just wait. Brett Bloemendaal, how you doing?
We need to hear about this.
Yeah, right.
Like on a tarpon.
Yeah, I went crappie fishing in Oregon with Crappie T last year, and he said I was setting the hook way too hard, which he's probably right. I lost some big walleyes not setting the hook good enough on a jigging wrap in the past, and I don't know. I can't get out. That's just instinct now. It's just like chasing what's out in the intro.
Yeah.
I think a buddy from down south. To Oklahoma or something up here. We were fishing for walleyes, pulling bottom bouncers, and we're in like 7 foot of water. And he set the hook like he was in the Bassmaster Classic. Yeah. The walleye, the 13-inch walleye, he set the hook on, went all the way across the boat and come off the hook.
So I fished with Pat Schlopper, who just won the last Bassmaster Elite, and I was out fishing with him, and I was just nervous as all get out, because Pat's, he was in like bucket C, in Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing. So basically, he's a celebrity, and I got 3 of my fingers caught in the bail, and I couldn't get them out. So I mean, he's like, "What in the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing. I got my fingers caught in the bail." He goes, "What?" And it's not like it's my first day of fishing. I'm just really nervous. Mm-hmm. So he's like, "Oh, for Pete's sake, I'm just another guy." So anyway, we get to going, and we're out fishing spotted bass on Table Rock, and he's like, "Okay, chuck it over there." So I'm like, whip it over there, and I set the hook, and he's like, "Did you miss that?" "Yeah." "Well, over there." And I'm like, "Did you miss that again?" He goes, "Jesus, are you a walleye guy or what?" Set the damn hook. So that's where I learned to do the show beginning hook set. But anyway, we have honestly, we could talk for hours tonight for everything that you've done, for all the stuff that you've done going back. You started this thing like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, where you just kind of got it rolling, and you were doing some different things. Did you write a book? You've done all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get that. Say that again.
Yeah, so just tell us about you. Tell us about this whole thing.
Yeah. So I guess I could use the book to kind of tell that. So basically it's like the story of how, like, what fishing's meant to me in my life growing up as a kid. I used to do it all the time with my dad and my grandpa and my brother. And as time went on, life happens, and I ended up being an investment analyst for 16, 17 years. And at some point, like, something was just kind of missing for me. And we ended up going on a fishing trip together with my dad and then my uncle and my cousin, and had a blast. And on the way home, we just both kind of looked at each other like we got to buy a boat together. So that's how that started. And then eventually that became my first guiding boat. And I started guiding 6 years ago up in North Dakota on Lake Sakakawea and Devil's Lake at the time. Now I'm pretty much Sakakawea only. But yeah, I started the YouTube channel just because I wanted a way to market, like a proof of concept for the guide service. And then eventually I just had so much freaking fun doing it, and met some other people that did it. Like Randy, my buddy Randy, Ripping Lips Adventures.
Yeah.
Like, he taught me a ton about how to actually make good videos instead of just catching fish with a camera. You know what I mean? So
right, yeah.
It's been a wild ride. It's been fun.
That's why we do everything live, because we don't that way is what it is, and you can't. There's no editing, because I don't have the patience to edit or the skill. Frankly, the skill. Let's just say that.
It takes too much time. It is a labor intense deal, right?
Yeah, and there was a point in time where I was like, oh, I can't wait till someday maybe I have enough subscribers that I could hire an editor. But now it's so much, like, that's where all the art comes into play, like knowing when to make the cuts and what stuff to add.
Yeah,
it still sucks being on the computer though, and I spend more time than I ever used to now, because at some point you just keep getting better and better at things, and then you don't want to go back. So now it's like I spend 8, 10, 12 hours on a video, and I put out fewer videos than I used to, but hopefully they're better. I don't know.
Well, and so I think, if I remember right, some of these screenshots have the time on them. So you're putting 8 to 10 hours in. Look at this one. This is a 25-minute video. You've got this one is 27 minutes.
Yeah.
Seriously, there's so much time in putting out the content. It's sometimes you have to wonder whether it's worth it or not from the creator standpoint. Now, from my standpoint, when I see this on YouTube, I'm like, oh crap. And I'm all about that 25 minutes solid. I've got blinders on, I'm focused, I'm everything. And I get done, I'm like, whoa, so is it worth it? I guess if you want to hear from a fan, damn straight, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I hope it's worth it to you to hear it from fans that we love it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I don't make enough money doing it to make it worth. Like, I don't know how many dollars I make per hour of effort, but it still helps the guide service. It's still
probably more like change if you really break it down.
Yeah.
But you did break it down, Brett, right? You broke it down. I think at the beginning, was it the beginning of 2025 where you went through 2024? Just go through that a little bit. Just give people an opportunity to understand that a tad.
Yeah, I did that the last 2 years, and I've kind of gotten so I watch a ton of YouTube stuff, period. So there's like kind of a popular YouTube thing for a while was saying how much money you made the first year you were monetized and breaking it down. So I was like, I want to take some of that stuff into the fishing world and do some of those things. I didn't know how well it would cross over, but maybe it didn't. I don't know. But yeah, so YouTube specific, I only make it was almost $2,000 last year for making videos for ads. But then I started a Patreon page, which is basically you could call it like a fan club, but I started offering fishing reports on it. I thought that was something that was a little more applicable. Yeah. It's North Dakota specific, but it's another reason for them to do it. So I make more money on Patreon than I do YouTube. In total, it was almost $6,000 last year, but it helps me get through the winter, so it makes it worthwhile. But also, just like you said, hearing from people that get something out of it, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you got to have something to pay the bills, right? I mean, you're going from one place to the next. I'll go I'll go here, I'll go there. And all I'm doing is radio content. Well, radio doesn't pay the bills either. It's just,
Right.
it's a show on the radio. And I may have made 7 cents on YouTube last year. I think it was 7 cents, something like that. Because I don't, whatever. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for a huge following. I'm in it because I'm a radio guy and I love it. But still, when all of a sudden you get a $1,200 paycheck from a sponsor or a few sponsors, now it pays the website bill, it pays the hosting bill, you're paying your domains, and now that stuff doesn't cost you anything, and it helps. But
Yep.
you really have to just, you love it, right? Correct. I mean, it isn't about making the money, it's about making the content, and I guess really you're reaching out and touching people like me, and other folks that Chad Miller and those that have commented, we're big fans, we're huge fans, and
appreciate that.
And it's meaningful, like I think I called you a North Dakota YouTube sensation, which frankly, I mean, you are, right? If you go look at the stuff that you've had over the last few years, incrementally, everything, your views are growing. Now you put out an episode, and in a matter of an hour, you have as many views as you did on stuff 4 years ago, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Right. And so that's validating. I mean, that's got to be super validating.
Yep. And there's not a ton of people that do it in North Dakota. Like Jason Mitchell, of course, but he doesn't exclusively film in North Dakota. Whereas I 90% of my stuff is like spring and fall. And then I do some ice fishing. Like I'll bounce around to some places, but I'm not doing the Tom Boley thing. I can't pull that off guiding, but yeah.
Yeah, a guy's gotta eat. Well, and the interesting thing about Tom Boley, I don't know if you saw his latest video that he put out on, I think it was Monday. The one where he was on Oahu out of a casca. He was in a tent.
Oh my God. That's the best video he's ever done. I'll like put that on in the background while like I'm eating dinner usually just to keep up with what he's doing. 20 minutes in, I'm not even eating. I'm
right.
staring at that thing. That video was amazing.
Yeah. I crap myself because I'm like, okay, well, I wonder where he's at. And I looked at it, and I've talked to Tom numerous times. He's like, if you want to use some stuff for In Through the Outdoors, go ahead. Just don't even have to let me know. Just use it. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got to do an episode on this. So I've got to go through and start finding my audio pieces so that I can take the 51-minute video and make it 65 seconds, and get it in. Like, what the hell? He caught a big fish like right away into it. I was like,
I know.
Where's he at? And I had to slide over, and I went, okay, he showed a map because I thought he was on Sakakawea. And like, oh my God, he's out of Swan Creek. He was staying in a casca, So what a great video though, but of course he's on a different level. He's not guiding anymore. Yep. And I'm sure he's the one that's making big bucks on YouTube. And if that's the case, that's fantastic. Right.
Yep. For him.
But I think the appeal for you is the fact that you're right there in North Dakota, and we're getting that Sakakawea connection from you and learning how to fish it and finding out what the fish are like up there.
Yeah. And because again, to go back to how I started it, like it was a proof of concept for the guide service. So it eventually became like a 25-minute fishing report once a week for people. So then of course, after that, I've tried to like think of things I can do that aren't only interesting to people on Sakakawea to try to expand a little bit. So that's why like some of the last video I did about jigging, like you could take that anywhere, hopefully. Right. So I still like to kind of keep that SEO presence for Sakakawea since I make a lot of videos there and that helps. But I also want to do some things to kind of expand beyond that boundary a little bit.
So do you spend a lot of time on that SEO stuff just to get more eyeballs?
I mean, I'm not like getting way into the weeds, like looking up the most appropriate search terms, but I know enough to know that like if I put Lake Sakakawea in the title, there's a good chance if somebody searches for that lake, it's going to show up, right? So I try to be a little smart about it without, I'm not hiring SEO marketing crews or anything, but
yeah, no way. No, that costs too much money. Kurt, you were talking about how SEO, search engine optimization, in case people don't know and understand the term. You were talking about something different the other day. What were you talking about? What was it?
SXO.
SXO.
It's the newest thing coming out. Basically, it's not like taking your normal search engine. It's looking across every platform. I don't know. Jared Petrie that we met in Devil's Lake was telling me all about this stuff. I don't know. I just do tournaments and do a podcast, and hopefully things go right, and have the people that can build a website for me do it.
Right.
You, Jason, that has your own website. I just have somebody do my website for me. So, but I also, like I said, during the day running tournaments and everything else, it's not one of the things I can focus on. But yeah, I try to stay up on stuff like the SXO is going to be the newest thing coming out. And yeah, it's basically, from the way Jared explained to me, it's not necessarily looking at words, but it's looking at everything, using AI, looking at everything you do to put you up to the top of the searches.
Well, I think that AI stuff, I don't know that you have to spend as much time on some of that anymore, because the AI bot basically watches your video and they know what you're talking about anyway.
Yeah, which is nuts. Even YouTube now. So all of my In Through the Outdoors episodes, I think I just did 1,111, 111, which is crazy. But the crazy thing now is YouTube actually automatically makes them into shorts.
Yeah.
So I do nothing with it, because I'm not going to spend my time on that. It's a waste of time. Well, I can have 16 views on an episode by midday, and then 2 days later, when the short comes out, it'll have 119, it'll have 210, it'll have 70, it'll have 35. I'm like, what the hell? I got more people listening to the shorts than to my actual download, which honestly, it's there for me. It's there for archiving. So to know that people are getting that from YouTube, from a short that YouTube's doing, and I'm kicking back, I mean, I'm not spending any time fiddling with that. It's neat to know that there are more ears listening.
So you said YouTube is doing this for you, not some party thing?
No, it's so I use Libsyn to put everything out there, right, on all of the podcast platforms. Which here's the crazy thing, right? So I don't look at podcast download numbers, because they used to just freak me out and make me cry, because I had 6 downloads, right? Or I had 42 downloads. Well, yesterday I'd Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday was yesterday, right? Because it was Wednesday. So I had 737 downloads. I'm like, what the? So the crazy thing is it's catching on 400 and some the day before that on Monday. And that's the podcast world. And I wasn't gonna put my stuff out there in the podcast world, but people kept saying, well, I don't listen to radio, but I'd like to listen to your show. So, I guess there's a lesson for you if you're not using Libsyn to put your audio out in podcast form. I don't know if you're missing out or not. I have no clue, but it's some work to do. But YouTube is making those shorts all on their own, because I looked it up. I'm like, how are these getting in here? I'm not doing this. And it said now that they will generate anything under 3 minutes will automatically generate a short through YouTube. So
the video has to be under 3 minutes before.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so all of mine are by default are exactly 2 minutes, and they just are automatically made into a short, which is really, really cool. Let's talk about your podcast. And I think, yes, I did get a graphic. Cast a Line podcast. And this is where I first met, or at least watched, Crappie T.
Yeah.
Tom Goodmestead. I told you in a text earlier, because you got to make sure you get names right? So I sent Brett a text and I said, is it Bloemendaal? I just want to make darn sure, because I'm saying Bloemendaal, but I could be wrong. And so when I saw Tom on and I wanted to reach out and talk to Tom, well, I got to know this guy's. What was good something? Good is Goodmestead.
Yep.
And you know, so there's all these name things. It's just it's one of those deals. But he was one of those guests that just sucked me in, because
Yeah.
you two were having a conversation about fishing Sakakawea, and you were talking about, I think he brought up the finisher. You know, oops, that big secret is out. Which hey, Dan, you know, Dan Spengler's like, make sure these guys tell the story. You know, he wants people to hear about the finisher and what color, etc. So you happened on Tom some way, somehow, and had him on the show. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I guess, first of all, the podcast is another one of those sort of like, how do I fill my time in the winter? I've done it for a couple of years. I got like 14 episodes, but they're fun to do anyway. But yeah, so Tom, he's originally from Garrison area when he was a kid. So he had fished here before, and then he became a dentist, moved to Idaho, and he just booked a trip with me several years ago. And I just thought it was another random fishing trip, no big deal. And then all of a sudden, like the week leading up to it, he's like texting me like 4 or 5 times a day and asking questions. I'm like, who's this guy? Well, then I eventually find out he's from here, and then I find out he's watching videos and stuff and all that jazz. And once we fished together, he then asked his wife if he could stay an extra day to fish another day and then make a video together. So we made a video on Sakakawea, a little head-to-head fishing challenge. And then after we've stuck together as close friends and stuff. And he's just got such a big personality. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do a podcast, he's got to be like the first guy I ask.
Yeah, right. And he does. And that's the crazy thing. He's so casual about it, but he stands out. And I guess that was kind of my deal. Like, you know, I think I'm really in on this guy because he's a ton of fun, and I like him. I mean, I instantly like the guy. And then I sent him a text, or maybe it was a message on Facebook, and he answered me back.
Yeah.
I'm like, Tom answered me back, you know, and then I got to know him a little bit, and he's this cool, down to earth guy. And I don't know if he knows that I'm coming out there to go perch fishing or not, but Crappie T, if you're watching the show tonight, I'm coming west because I want to catch some big perch.
There you go. Yeah. I don't think that I know anybody else that's more into fishing than him. In terms of like consuming it, talking about it all the time. And I thought I was that person until I met him. And every once in a while, I'm like, I've reached my limit. Like I gotta go to bed or something.
He's saying drill.
The guy that's ever gotten me there.
Love it.
So let's talk about your guiding on Sakakawea. When do you start? What is it looking like this year? We talked a little bit before the show, but let's go into a little bit what Sakakawea is looking like right now and what your predictions on the year are.
Yeah, so I usually come up here sometime in middle of April to try to get on the pre-spawn bite. I don't always get a whole lot of clients to fish that because it's a little hard to time, but also I think some people are a little spooked by the weather. But anyway, that's about when I get here, and then I stay here till end of October, November, or whatever. But I really like the way it's setting up this year. We had a couple of weird years the last two. So like 2 years ago, it got stupid hot and it was calm at the same time and it was sunny. So like the lake was just absorbing all this energy, and the whole water column just roasted, and fishing was amazing for like 2 weeks. And then the fish went, as soon as we had a blow to stir things up, they went down to 30 feet, like second week of June. So then we're fishing deep all year. Well, then last year was the opposite. It was super, super cold. We never really got that warming in the shallow water to kind of push them up shallow. So they're all spread out the water column, almost like a post turnover fall situation, which was weird. And then we had deep fishing most of last year as well. But this year, it's just a nice, steady, like it's taking a little longer than normal to get going, but it's a nice gradual build. We've been fishing shallow pitching jigs for at least 3 weeks now during the post-spawn bite. They'll hit plastics in the afternoon a little bit now. I still think we got 2 or 3 weeks of good shallow jig fishing yet, which is awesome for me. I love doing that. I think a lot of clients like to do it. I like the way this year's setting up personally. And we got a nice, really big class of, 13, 14, 15-inch fish. So we got to, if somebody doesn't want those fish, we got to sort through them. If they want them, great. That makes life easy. But the lake continues to just churn out those year classes to keep things rolling, which is awesome. And we're still plenty of big fish because we have tournaments here all the time. Yeah, there's a decent fish there.
Yeah, right. The double 30s.
Yeah.
And then AIM. Well, so Tom is going to be in North Dakota. Is it next week? Because AIM is on Sakakawea on, is it the 18th, 19th? 19th, 20th. Like something like that. So so do you think it's going to be shallow jig fishing that wins it then, or is it's a little early to tell because the weather could change, right?
Yeah, I mean I do think it's going to start to warm up by then a little bit. I do think the shallow bite is going to be pretty dominant, but there's always a chance people get some big fish deep. Like I wouldn't guide there,
right?
You know, that's not what the numbers pattern is going to be, but there's always big fish that are hanging down there, and those guys that are scoping that can tease fish into biting if they can get 2 or 3 big ones deep. You know, it seems like I don't know that there's always as much of a pattern to those tournament fish anymore when they're live scoping them. As long as they can find them and trick them into biting. Whereas like guys, we're always trying to what's the best pattern percentage wise to get numbers in the boat. I think the numbers pattern is going to be shallow.
Yeah, I get that makes sense. You know,
there's two sides. On Lake Walleye, South Dakota, there's two. You have to pattern the small fish so you can get your slots because we have a slot limit. But up there, you just chase 5 big ones all.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So let me ask you a fishing question because, and I think this fits into your videos that we're talking about ripping wraps, jigging wraps, right? So last weekend, I'm out on Oahe and I start marking fish. And I was fiddling with my motor, so I had bouncers out the back, and I really try to stay away from bouncers anymore. But I'm pulling spinners, just little red helicopter blades, red and white beads. While I'm fiddling with the motor and doing some stuff, and I get it running, and everything's good. And I'm like, okay, now I'm fishing, so I'm marking fish. So I pull out a jigging wrap, and I give it a chuck, and I got all these fish coming and checking it out, and my bouncers, 10, 15, 20 feet away, but I'm just not catching anything, and they're not committing to the jigging wrap. So I let the jigging wrap slide back to the bouncer, and wham. And I mean, that was the pattern, right? I mean, all 4 of them came off of jigging wrap next to the crawler. Mm-hmm. So the next day we go out, we're pulling bouncers because we got a 10-year-old with us, and it's a whole lot easier to pull a bouncer, but then the bouncer bite stopped. It was over. So Big Mike took jigging wraps. He was using number 9s, and he caught a couple 18s and a 20, but he kept missing a bunch.
Yep.
So my question is, if he would have sized, dropped down to a 7, do you think he could have been more successful on the hookup on that, or doesn't size matter in that particular situation?
Oh, for sure it does, because they're trying to chase it down and suck it in. So if you're getting bites but missing them, they might just be missing. So with a little smaller profile, a little lighter weight, yeah, that could have worked.
Okay. So that was, I guess I asked Mike, I said, do you think if you'd have dropped down to a 7, if you'd have changed and made that switch, which I think all he had were 9s, and that's fine, because it was, honestly, it was really cool to find out that the bouncer thing shut up. It was like a switch.
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell is going on now? I mean, there's just absolutely nothing messing around. And then he said, I'm marking fish, and we're pulling over the top of him, and it's going nowhere. So he starts ripping, and bam. And it was almost constant. But I missed that one. I got one. Oh, I missed one. Get the net. I missed one.
Yep.
And so trying to learn from that situation. So I guess you kind of confirm that a guy should at least try to drop down, maybe even to number 5. I don't know.
Maybe the question becomes, does he actually get the bites when you go to that, though? Because sometimes they like the fact that the number 9s are more erratic because they're heavier. So sometimes I can't get bites on 7s, especially like in the fall, because they're just not quick enough and they don't fall fast enough. So sometimes you need that action to get the bite. But if they will still bite the 7, you probably hook up better.
That's interesting, too. I'm glad I asked the question. I hope somebody learned something as well as me. If nobody else did, I learned something tonight. So that's good. Yeah, that's good.
So guiding on Sakakawea, I mean, you like said April. You start in April. You go till September, October. When do you cut it off for that?
Usually whenever the weather stops us. Sometimes that's the earliest I've ever been done is October 22nd.
And when would you say the best time to come up there is?
What do you want to do?
Good question. Catch walleye, chasing Walter.
The best numbers time is June, early July, and it's hard to time the pre-spawn bite, but if somebody wants to get big fish, I always tell them late October.
Do you fish up on the arm quite a bit, or where do you guide mostly?
So I'm based in Garrison. I like to fish out of Garrison if we can. We've had a little bit of an issue with the fish wanting to move west the last couple of years. So we spent a lot of time going to Deepwater Bay, and then as long as we can do well around Deepwater, great. If not, we might push up into the river, which is the Pouch Point corner where the water gets skinnier for people that don't know it. But sometimes I sneak up into the arm as well. Rarely do I ever run all the way up to the north end of the arm, just because that's, I don't know, it might be a 20-mile run, but usually that south end or hitting Shell Island along the way kind of thing. So I fished in and around the arm a lot, but I don't launch there very often.
It's a drive, right?
Steve wants to know, is the jigging Rap the secret lure?
Sometimes there's definitely times where if fish just aren't feeding and you can't get bites doing anything else, you might catch a few on jigging Raps for sure. But there's also it seems like anytime somebody starts doing something new for a couple, 2-3 years, it seems like the secret lure. And then it kind of reverts to the mean a little bit.
I was just going to say that because we're starting to talk down here that it's kind of getting the fish are getting wise to it, right?
Yeah.
They've seen jigging Raps or something, but they don't mean maybe we're just losing confidence in it, because I'm a firm believer in your confidence, right? Yeah. If you believe in a jig and minnow and I believe in jig and plastics, no matter how much I put a plastic on your thing, I'm still going to outfish you because I've got the confidence and I'm a firm believer in that. But yeah, we're seeing down here, that's been the trend, is jigging Raps aren't as productive as they once were.
I would agree. And for a while, I was thinking maybe the conditions are just different. We had a couple weird weather years. Maybe that had the fish in a different mood. They weren't chasing, but I don't know. It feels different. You can still have good days with jigging Raps, but 3 and 4 years ago, they started biting them at the end of June. And you could throw bouncers around for 2 hours and get a limit of fish, but you could throw jigging Raps for 2 hours and catch 60. It was nuts. And that was I used to only use them in the fall. That was late June and July. That year, that's almost all we did. Anybody that wanted to throw a jigging Rap, I was like, here you go. We caught way more fish on jigging Raps than anything else.
Oh, okay, so is the secret to the jigging Rap the live sonar then? Because I remember when Al was throwing that jigging Rap from the first time, I don't know how many years ago, but it was years ago, right? I mean, this jigging Rap thing is not brand new.
No.
And I could never make it work for me ever until Live Scope says there's fish down there. Now I'm going to work them.
I mean, that definitely helps, but sometimes we're kind of lucky on Sakakawea where I didn't have Live Scope till last year, and I have Mega Live to be clear, I guess, but you can find big pods of fish with side imaging and 2D, and you just know that there's 200 fish over here.
I would have to say that I think the boys that they didn't break the door open, but that were doing it first kind of brought it. I mean, I wouldn't say they're doing it first, but really made it limelight. We're right here in Pier, and they won the 40th Governor's Cup doing it. And they weren't telling anybody, and that was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So Live Scope wasn't a thing 11 years ago. Now, will I say Live Scope enhances the jigging Rap experience and what you're catching? Yes, but I don't think it's crucial.
I don't either. But I mean, if you're not on a fish, you got to make sure you're around fish, whether it's because you see a big school and you cast in the middle of them, or because you see one on someone forward facing that you could throw at, one or the other.
Steve, I got a comment on Steve. Steve says I can't seem to make a jig and wrap work for me. So there's a good buddy of mine that is started as a co-angler, now fishing the pro side of the National Walleye Trail. And we had the same thing. And he went out one winter. He's like, I can't get these wraps to work. And he tied a jigging wrap on. And his whole thing was, I'm fishing with nothing but a jigging wrap. And now he's got confidence in it and makes it work. And now he's experimenting in other stuff. But he just forced himself to become confident with it.
I had a learning curve with it as well. There were some times where I tried them a little bit and it wasn't. The thing that really turned on a light switch for me a little bit was I went out with some other guides here and they were casting them. That was the game changer for me. Like I caught some fish doing it.
Just vertical jigging right over the edge of the boat.
And we started casting and it was like, oh my God, that was way different.
Yeah, the casting is a big difference, I think. When I was a kid, 30 years ago, my dad would always put a jigging wrap on if we were outside fishing. Never put it on the ice shack. It was always a vertical ice fishing jig, and that's what a jigging wrap was to me until the last 5-6 years. I had a couple of my jigging in my ice box, but never in my boat.
It's funny though. We talk about ice fishing. So I had some clients like 3 years ago, and this one was when the jig and wrap bite was so really good. But for whatever reason, we were fishing in second week of October, but we got a heat wave. So it was like 78 degrees, flat calm, sunny. And we were struggling getting bites even with jigging wraps. And there was a guy that was just doing it like this, like he's ice fishing with them. Doink. And he caught 8 or 10 on that spot. And I was like, oh, okay. So I learned something from him, one of my clients. So,
so that's interesting because I was going to say, Steve, I think the one thing that I've noticed, like Brett, when I watch you with a jig and wrap, I go, okay, he knows how to do it. It's like watching somebody ride a horse. I can tell who can actually ride a horse and who can't just by watching them, right? So my thing that I've learned and it changes things for me. I've figured this out at Tour Level Gold. I'm watching. Okay, what it.
I don't know. This would be Thompson.
I don't know what's going on there, but it's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. So okay, so to make a long story short, if Steve, if you go watch Brett ripping a jig and wrap, if you go watch Tom Boley, if you go watch TJ Erickson, if you go watch Al, and then you watch me. And you see why these guys are catching and I'm not, because frankly, I just don't know how to do it. I just haven't figured it out. But go watch Brett's YouTube videos because if monkey see, monkey do, right? Learn that cadence, learn that whole snapping thing, because there's something more to it than just ripping the thing, right? I mean, there's a little more to it.
There's like 10 or 12 different ways I'll work it.
Yeah.
Some of it comes to how far you rip it every time. Some of it comes to how long you go between. Some of it comes to casting or vertical. Sometimes you don't even let it hit the bottom and you're just bouncing it off. I mean, so yeah, there's days where we get them trolling the boat and ripping it behind. And there's days where we're trolling and we're casting, sometimes trolling the boat. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it starts to sweep sideways, if that's what it is. But sometimes we'll sit spot lock casting, nothing. I'm like, well, let's go find some more fish. So I start trolling. And then the first cast, somebody gets it trolling on the same pot of fish. And then we just keep trolling and keep catching them. So just change up your cadence, change up how fast, how hard. Are you moving the boat? Are you not? Vertical casting.
Sometimes it's like when you're live scoping them, if you're set up one way and they're not biting you, 180 them and come the other direction at them, they might bite it, you know. So that's something live scope has taught us, is that if you're casting at it and you may be dragging it from tail to head and they're not hitting it, you go the other way and drag it from head to tail, they'll hit it, And so you got
deep to shallow.
Exactly. Yep.
So
there's a lot of different things that go into that.
Do you pull a lot of bouncers with clients then?
Yeah. That's mostly once you get into that season, that's kind of what's going on. But going back to what you were saying earlier about how you were doing both at the same time, I almost always do that. Like if I got a group of 4 with bouncers, I might be busy, but let's say I got 3, I don't really feel the need to put out another bottom bouncer. So I'm casting something. And I find so often that, like you said, either the morning this works, the afternoon this works, but also you start like, especially for like spot locks, I got people vertical jigging minnows and I throw a jigging rod. They might not bite it, but as soon as I get to the boat and I reel it up, somebody gets hit on the jig. So it like brings fish into the boat and now they're around and they see the minnow. So I like combining presentations.
So you've been talking right now, you're casting shallow with jigs. Have you done any jerk baits for walleyes yet?
No, I
ask you on something?
I'm making a video.
Shut up.
What's that?
You gotta look on your face like shut up.
Yeah. I literally plan on making a video that's I've never fished a jerkbait before, and I'm going to try it for the first time and just see how it goes.
Because I've been hearing that there's some good jerk bite baits on shallow water walleyes with a jerk bait. You know,
I've done it for like pike way back in the day. I had like shallow wraps and stuff. My brother and I were casting at pike, but I've literally never tried to catch walleyes with them. So I had the idea to make a video about that. So if anybody's watching this, it's coming.
I am waiting for it. I think Brett McComas just released a video on jerk baits where he's not jerking it. He's actually just kind of popping it lightly. And it seemed to work on that day. Matter of fact, I was just getting audio to put together the,
sorry to interrupt, but like the idea is like, so there's 2 different kind of videos that I do sometimes. Like one is like, I've done this 1,000 times. I know what I'm talking about. And the other is I have no clue what I'm doing. So I'm trying to like not learn anything.
Not learn anything.
Just watch me be an idiot for 30 minutes until I figure this out. I feel like both are like good ways to learn. Some people like one better. So
so
I'm trying not to absorb anything.
I will stop right there because here's the deal. What I want you to do, I want you to do that from the I've never done it before perspective, because guys like me and maybe Steve and some of these other guys watching or gals want to see you struggle, and then you get over that hump and all of a sudden, bam, there it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to figure it out.
I like making those videos.
Yeah, and we like to see that. So that's exciting. Do you have that filmed, or are you?
Well, I filmed myself buying jerk baits at Shields.
Okay.
So far. All
right. So that's as much that's okay. All right.
Yeah. So if the shallow thing holds on, I'm guiding 9 out of the next 10 days, but the next time I have a day off, if there's still a good shallow bite, that's my plan.
Well, I'm excited for it.
To watch you learn it, because I've never done it, so I couldn't even give you pointers.
Yeah.
But I can't even give you them pointers on that, but I've just been hearing that there's something a lot of fun to do.
It sounds fun. Yeah, Randy's got into the 2-foot deep diving crankbait the last couple of years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
He always gets at least one big fish when he does it, it seems like.
And we have a lot to learn, don't we? I mean, for those that are, and my big thing is I got to get away from bottom bouncing, because it just makes you a lazy fisherman, right? There's so many other ways to catch fish, and more and bigger fish.
Well, I mean, but if all you want to do is have a good day on the water and maybe catch some fish in the froth, like I don't have anything against it, of course. I don't think you do either, but
no.
If that's all somebody wants to do, that's great. But for people that are like interested in learning new ways to do it, like that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg, barely. There's a lot of other ways to get it done.
Well, it's just evolution, right? I mean, we wouldn't have these baits if guys didn't want to try something different.
Yeah.
And then what we're learning with Live Scope is that a lot of the bass techniques that they've been doing for years, jerk baits, Ned rigs, drop shotting, all plays into what we do with walleyes.
Yeah, that's been the big revolution, I think, in the last few years, is like realizing that bass fishermen might be better walleye fishermen than us.
Yeah. When the Elite Series came to Pier, my buddy was he was a boat marshal with Randy the Honey Badger, Randall Tharp, and the first day it's blowing like all crazy. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to make the big run. I've been here before. I know this kind of body of water. And so they just ran out, got into a bay, and he's casting, and he's casting a jerk bait. And then if he'd see one, he'd throw a Ned rig at it, and he's catching walleyes. And he'd turn and look at the boat marshal. Is this a good one? He's like, yeah, it's a good one. He's like, do you want to keep it? He's like, no. He goes, I went out and bought so much bass equipment to go try to duplicate what he was doing, because he was catching more walleyes than he was bass. Like, and he didn't even know what he is this a good one? Every time, is this a good one?
The year before I started guiding, I was fishing. I took some of my buddies out to Platte, South Dakota, and it was like May, early post spawn bite, and we're catching fish. We're doing okay, but we're watching these guys up shallow throwing jigs, and we saw them catch a 26-inch walleye. So we get in there a little bit and we start talking with them, and they're like, how you doing? Well, we're doing okay. We're catching fish, but my buddies kind of want some bigger ones. He's like, we're just fishing for smallmouth, and we've caught 6 overs so far. So right there.
Yeah, that whole Ned rig thing, I thought I laughed at it, and I not because I think I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm like, what? So it's a jig that just stands up. So what's the big deal? And then I start meeting more guys. I've got a buddy, Aaron, and his son, Ryland, that do the local bass tournaments. Like, you got to be kidding me. They'll go out right away. And I think those bass guys take off at like 6 a.m. Right. So they're out there pitching those Ned rigs in shallow water, whacking the big walleye. And then it's on to the bass. Like, wow, there's something to be, there's just even for guys fishing tournaments, everybody is just hell bent for leather going 30 miles up the river. Why don't you just go around the corner for the first half hour and try a Ned rig? You might have some pretty nice fish in the box, but
that's something I haven't really done either. I don't know if Sakakawea sets up for that very well. I think that's better, a natural lake bite on the mud flat kind of thing. Maybe anywhere you get
how about
action or some leeches, it's probably a leech imitator, crayfish. I don't think it fits Sakakawea very well, but maybe I'm missing it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're using jigs in shallow water, so why not try it?
I think for me, like, especially when the fish start getting amped up here, they like to chase. So the faster I can fish, the better. And Ned rigs are like the slowest you could fish, except for the bobber.
They're almost boring.
So even if they work, I just don't feel like I'm catching them fast enough if it does work, I think.
Yeah, I suppose in what you're trying to do, you're trying to catch fish and catch them quick rather than catch 5 fish, put them in the box, and head back for weigh-in.
Right. Exactly.
You're heading back to fillet and send fish home with your clients.
Yeah, but I've also never heard of anybody doing well with net rigs out here, but that could also mean that somebody's winning tournaments with it and they're not telling us. So.
Yeah. Weird. Walleye are secretive. Huh. Weird.
Yeah. I was watching, was it Hunter Nitty episode you did where you were talking about that?
Yeah. Where Hunter's like, we do have special tricks and techniques that nobody needs to know. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Some people like the fact that I make YouTube
baked potato tinfoil.
I wouldn't mind being a fly on the wall, whatever.
So, I mean, that's the thing is all these things, somebody's got to try them, right? Somebody took a jig and wrap out of the box and said, I've had it in my ice box for 25 years. I'm going to throw it out and I'm going to cast this thing, So there's a bunch of different things out there, the Ned rigs, the jerk baits, wait till we get into these big glide baits. I don't ever want to get into that where you're paying thousands of dollars for glide baits to cast that. But, and that's the thing. That's why our sport evolves, right? That's why our sport evolves. Last summer we have Dave Spade on and talking about the invention of the slow death hook.
Oh, yeah.
Slow death was invented right here in Pierce, South Dakota on Lake Walleye by Dave Spade.
Yeah.
They realized how it churned in the water. And he goes, when the mayflies hatch, we were crushing everybody. And they kept it a secret for a little bit, then it got out, right? I mean, and then slow death was the thing. and then that kind of slowed down. And I'll never forget when flicker shads came out. If you didn't have a blue flicker shad or a purple flicker shad on Lake Hawaii, you were nuts.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was incredible, you know, but then they kind of go away, and, you know, so it's everything kind of evolves, you know, and it'd be fun to take a tackle box of old thin fins and rattle traps and say, here, this is all you get. You know, what happens in a day, right? Like, you're only getting the old school, the original Rapala, floating Rapalas, and that's all you get. You don't get anything else.
Lazy Ikes. I want to go back to Lazy Ikes. I'm not kidding you. Because why not? You know, the only problem there is you know they're buoyant, so it's not like it's going to work with live scope or anything.
Right. You need some shallow fish, but I think you could still catch a walleye on that.
I would think, why not? You know, I mean, or here's another one. Go back to the Smithwick Rogue Perfect 10. Does anybody fish with those anymore? They were whacking fish like crazy on those 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now you don't even hear anybody say Rogue Perfect 10, except Tom Boley, I think.
I'm just gonna say that was the last time I heard it was on a Tom Boley video. Lazy Ike. That was my favorite lure as a kid, was a Lazy Ike.
Yeah, too. Like, every time I'm at the lake cabin in Minnesota, I threw a Lazy Ike. I don't even know if you can buy a Lazy Ike anymore. You know,
I've never seen him.
You find the plastic ripoffs, and that's it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, it'd be fun to just go out and say all you can fish is with old school tactics, right? I mean, who drags a Lindy rig anymore? Unless you're in Minnesota.
Here the last 2 years.
What's that?
That's kind of made a comeback out here the last.
Really?
2 years.
We never bottom bounce. We Lindy rigged my whole life. Never bottom bounce. Always Lindy rigged. And I was from northern Minnesota, so that's probably why. But I don't see anybody Lindy rigging anymore.
Yeah, nobody ever talks about it, really.
I hardly ever saw people doing it here until the last couple of years when, like I said, that weird weather was kind of putting the fish off a little bit. They were a little less chasey, a little more tight to bottom, and more people I start driving by and looking, I'm like, I think they're pulling Lindy's. I have a hard time figuring. I don't know. I don't have confidence with a Lindy rig myself. But.
Yeah,
so it was funny because we had the guide group last couple of days, and Emily Asher comes in. She goes, "I threw a drift sock." No way, a drift sock, and I'm like, you know. That's all we ever throw, the drift sock. I mean, my whole life we had a drift sock outside the boat. You don't see that anymore. You don't see, I mean, you see a few people out there drifting, but most people are driving contour, and that's what they're doing. You know, but I mean, my whole life was a drift sock and a Lindy rig.
Yeah. I used a drift sock 3 years ago when my Altera broke once.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do, right? I mean, even a 5-gallon pail, or at least the minnow bucket, whatever. You know, something to slow you down. So now, before I forget, I was looking through pictures that I popped up. I'm going to pop this up for people real quick. So you'll find Brett on YouTube at Bloemendaal Fishing. But somewhere along the line, at one point a while ago, I saw a video, and I was going to get a screenshot of it today, and I think I definitely forgot. You talked about doing impersonations of famous fisherman or something.
Yeah, that was like 5 years ago.
So when we get done, I'm going to go back and watch it, because I was going to do that today. My mom called, and so I got distracted. I never went back. I'm like, oh, because I was hoping to use some bits from the video. So what did you do there?
I thought it would be, I don't know. I like stand-up comedy. That's one of my other like favorite pastimes, I guess, is watching a bunch of stand-up guys and gals. So I thought maybe it would be a cool video idea to just impersonate Tom Boley, Jay Siemens, Al Linder. I did Mike Frisch as well, because I was on Fishing the Midwest, and I thought he was kind of a funny guy. Aaron Weeb, of course. So if Aaron Weeb, I just put on some sunglasses and had my hair all whacked out, and I don't know. It didn't really catch on very well, but I thought it was kind of funny.
Okay. So here's what's funny about that. I did an episode on, I think, Al impersonators, and I'll bet you were one of them.
I doubt it. I don't know.
When we get done, I am going to go search through my episodes and see if I can find it, and I'm going to listen. Well, then I'll go watch your video and see, because I did a stand-up comedy episode too, where like this is why fishermen are not stand-up comedians. And you know, and I thought some people would kind of get a kick out of it because Chimichawa Chungabunga, whatever the hell that lake in, I don't even remember how to pronounce it. I had to phonetically do it to get past it because I couldn't pronounce the name of the damn lake, you know, and so, and then my trip to Namesville, that's how Kurt and I got to know each other. So one year I had an episode where I used a name, whether it's a first name or a last name, from everybody I had on the show for that year. And it was this whole trip to Namesville. And here again, you know, you're thinking that it's going to blow up on you. This is going to be the deal. And then it isn't. But the cool thing is you've got it in your archive and it's there. And like I keep telling people, you know, maybe nobody cares about In Through the Outdoors, but some 12-year-old kid 6 years from now is going to find, well, who knows how many episodes I do before it's over, but I'm over 1,000 now. And they're going to be all about this Chasing Walter dude that's got this 2-minute thing. And he tells about how he fishes and he's got other people on. And, you know, it's a ton of fun to be able to have all that archive just for yourself.
The best part about this whole thing is his trip to Namesville. Like, I'd say 1% of the population would understand it because you got to know the people inside the industry to get it. But I mean, and I thought the only reason I say 1% is because there was bets this year if Chasing Walters is this guy's real name. There's literally been bets going on across the walleye guys going, Chasing Walters his real name. He even made a birth certificate. And people still think it's his real name. My wife, sorry, honey, if you're watching, she asked me a couple months ago, she's like, all right, you call him Brian, and he's got, what is his real name? And I'm like,
you know, here's the thing. When you're doing radio, Brian Waltz from your basement in Volga is pretty damn boring, but Chasing Walter from Milfoil got a thing to it, right? It's got a ring to it. People are like, well, where's Milfoil? It's a weed lake. It's everywhere. Right? You know, like, well, whatever. So, anywho, man, I'll tell you what, that boom, almost an hour gone, and it's been fantastic. Appreciate you. Thanks for taking the call late in the afternoon and filling in because and you know, I always hate to tell people that they were second choice, but when a guy blows his Achilles, and is in the emergency room, like, what are you gonna do? But the show's got to go on, right? And so you filled in a pinch, did a great job. Excited to just absolutely.
Zach won the bet.
I think that's just damn funny. I really do. Steve, thank you very much. So make sure you get out and follow Brett, especially on YouTube. Of course, got the website there too, and just scrolling it across the bottom of the screen, BloemendaalFishing.com. You can get a guided trip on Lake Sakakawea. And if you sit and watch the videos, my guess is it won't take very long and you're going to call and hire him to guide you because, Brett, you know how to fish. You know what you're doing and you do it very well.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Glad to be on. I don't care if I'm second choice. It was still fun.
Well,
your first choice in my heart, man. I'll tell you what, it was great to have you on the air tonight. I'm not kidding you. It was fun. Good luck to Crappie T up there. I'm guessing you guys will be hanging out a little bit. And I don't know, are you going to be around for the Dakota Wall?
Speaking of that,
thanks, Randy.
See the post, Adam Rasmussen. Somebody put an air tag in his salmon boat.
Yeah,
really?
And he found it.
No.
Yeah, he put a post on his Facebook. We had Adam on a couple years ago after he made it to the Bassmaster Classic, and so we had him on and we talked to him about what he ended up second in the Bassmaster Classic, and then so I've been following him, and literally somebody put an air tag in his salmon boat. He goes, I wonder how many of these are in the Vexus boat. You know, like somebody threw an air tag in his salmon boat. So
that's hilarious. I can't believe they did it, but you know what? People are just that damn desperate.
Hey,
you know,
Jason, don't worry. Nobody's going to put an air tag in our boats. Just don't worry about it.
Not worry about it. My boat's not big enough for an air tag.
How big's an air tag?
Oh, it's about that big, but then again, see, my tiny cabin is 16 feet long. My boat outside is 16 feet long. My ice house outside is 16 feet long, and my pickup is 19 feet. So when I'm in my pickup, it's like I'm in a castle, right? So anyway,
right.
Well, hopefully I get to meet you in person and run into you, talk to you at the Dakota Walleye Classic if you're going to be around in July. We'll be fresh off the Gov Cup and
and
of course, but if I'm not, or even if I am, love to run into you. It'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
So you guys, just before we end the show, make sure tomorrow's night's last night to sign up for the Denny Palmer in Mobridge 3-man event, over $3,000 in door prizes and a chance to win your entry in the Mobridge Ice Tournament. Still time to get in. Call me if you got any questions. And sorry to put that in there, Brent, but I had to get that out there before the show ended. We appreciate having you on tonight, and look forward to seeing everybody this weekend in Mobridge, and tune in live again this weekend. We'll be live Friday and Saturday from Mobridge.
Fabulous. All right, Brett. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.